Kid Rock's Devil Without a Cause album represented one of music's greatest reinvention stories, transforming a struggling Midwestern musician into a diamond-selling superstar. But the road to get there was tough. Kid Rock failed not once, not twice, but several times, and it took an unexpected loan to save his career. His commercial breakthrough, though, nearly died upon its release, as it took almost a year for it to break big, and it happened in large part thanks to perfect timing. Today, because you guys requested it, let's talk about the rise of Kid Rock. Let me know what other acts from this era you guys want me to cover in the comments section below. Before we get started, be sure to hit the bell notification icon and put all notifications on. I hear from a lot of my subscribers that they don't even get notifications when I post my videos. Kid Rock was born Robert James Ritchie, referred to as Bobby by his family. He was born in 1971 in Romeo, Michigan, a small village about 35 miles north of Detroit. The musician was pretty open about his middle-class upbringing, telling the press and Sun Bulletin, "I grew up around cornfields and horses. My mom packed my lunch every day for school. I was pretty middle class. My parents had money." He grew up on a 5-acre parcel of land that saw him mow the lawn, move rocks, and wood piles, in addition to cutting down trees. His parents met at Michigan State University. His dad was a business major graduating at the top of his class, and he later went on to become one of Michigan's top car salesmen. His sense of drive and determination was also driven into his 4 kids. But come Friday and Saturday nights, his parents also knew how to let loose. They'd host barnyard parties. Bobby recalled hearing Bob Seger's live Bullet album being on constant rotation at these parties. He also grew up on a lot of country music and Elvis, admitting, "I miss the whole 80s rock thing. I like all that old country music."
You can't hear them talk, other times you can all the same. Don't believe a word I say.
No one resonated more with him, though, than Hank Williams, as he told Spin, "He's the only person who's had a lifestyle remotely similar to mine."
Hey, good looking. What you got cooking?
By the time Bobby was 3, he was entertaining his parents' friends at the parties, singing Bad Bad Leroy Brown or Bob Seger's Ramblin' Gamblin' Man.
Bad Leroy Brown, the baddest man in the whole damn town. Bad.
It was evident that he was going to be a performer later on in his life, but Bobby felt like he never got a lot of attention from his parents, especially after one of his brothers lost a leg in a freak tractor accident. Bobby told Rolling Stone, "He was always the center of attention, so I'm sure I was always trying to say, 'Hey, look at me.'" By the early to mid-'80s, he got into hip-hop, citing groups like the Sugar Hill Gang, Grandmaster Flash, Run DMC, LL Cool J, and Beastie Boys.
You don't stop and go hotel, motel, and what you gonna do today? 'Cause I'm gonna get a...
But it's like that, and that's the way it is. So you're right to party.
Begging his parents for a mixer and turntable, he started to make beats, being self-taught. He was soon mixing classic rock and country samples with hip-hop beats. He remarked to the Austin American-Statesman, "As soon as I heard it, I was gone. The breakdancing, the whole hip-hop culture, I just went nuts for it. I put my Marshall Tucker records away and I was like, yeah, this expletive is cool." In high school, he was dancing and rapping and DJing, playing weddings, and even got sponsored by a local Burger King. But his rural and middle-class upbringing didn't lend itself to being a hot spot for hip-hop, and so he ventured not too far away to Mount Clemens, an area with a larger black population and a bigger affinity for the music he was into. He started DJing at basement parties in a housing project, making about $20 a gig. He became quite popular due to his skills surprising the locals. Kid Rock admitted, "We would charge $250 admission to have dances. It was pretty wild. I had a weird way of scratching. I never really scratched the way other people did, but I could still rap a part." It was in Mount Clemens that he got the moniker Kid Rock. Kids from the town would say, "That's the Kid Rock in the turntables," or "Watch that white kid rock." Despite him now being into hip-hop, Kid Rock did see the similarities between his country favorites and hip-hop, adding that both genres of music are like tight-knit families, and groups in these genres are more likely to collaborate and guest on each other's albums than compared to rock artists. But the amount of time he was spending in Mount Clemens soon worried his parents, And it wasn't uncommon for him to crash at friends' house. At age 14, he was thrown out of his family home for the first time, spending up to 3 weeks in Mount Clemens, with him telling Rolling Stone, "I think they were pretty freaked that I had moved into the ghetto," referring to his parents. Walking around, drinking 40s, man, eating pork rinds, hanging out at the barbershop, riding the bus to Detroit to get records, hanging out with the guys selling drugs on the street. Kid Rock at one point was even selling crack. What appeared to be his first big break came when he sent a demo tape in 1989 to New York-based Jive Records. He soon had a record deal by the age of 18. It was almost unheard of for people outside of the coastal cities like LA and New York to get a label deal, let alone be a white rapper. Kid Rock soon left home and headed to New York City. Jive issued his debut album, Grits Sandwiches for Breakfast. Heavily influenced by Beastie Boys, the album featured production from Too Short and D Nice. The record achieved notoriety, particularly for the explicit track Yodelin' in the Valley about sex. It was widely reported that the FCC fined a college radio station, WSUC-FM, for playing it uncensored. But in reality, they never paid the fine. Kid Rock explained in one interview, the station was going to have to close down, but the fines were dropped because the person who recorded the song and sent it into the FCC didn't write the call letters for the station. Despite touring with the likes of Ice Cube, Kid Rock struggled to make inroads as a white rapper. After all, Vanilla Ice was the big white rapper at the time. But in a strange twist years later, Kid Rock claimed that his signing to Jive Records created some bad blood with Vanilla Ice, who felt like he should have been the one signed to the label instead. Kid Rock also wasn't happy with the label's promotion of the album, and given Vanilla Ice's popularity, Jive Records released Kid Rock from his contract. This would be the first of many setbacks in the early part of his career. He walked away with only $6,000 of his $100,000 deal. After being dropped, Kid Rock returned to Detroit and continued to develop his sound, reconnecting with a lot of the rock music that he grew up with in his rural home. He also tried to learn as many instruments as possible. It was by 1992 that he met his best friend at the time, Uncle Kracker, who did turntables for his live band. And if you guys remember, Uncle Kracker went on to have his own success years later.
The beat boys and free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll.
Kracker told Spin of his early days with Kid Rock, "We would put out bootlegs of Kid stuff just to keep some money coming in." Kid Rock soon signed a new deal with Continuum Records, which released his 1993 album, The Polyfuse Method. The album's title was born thanks to the Hair Club for Men commercial that the members of his band had joked about when they were stoned one day. This album saw the musician start to develop his rock rap sound and his trailer park pimp daddy persona. The Polyfuse era performances also scared some promoters, as Kid Rock's touring band was only made up of himself, Uncle Kracker, and a drummer. Kracker told Spin, "It used to be me, Bob, and a drummer, and then after a while it would be like, damn, promoters aren't booking rap shows because they're afraid of violence. So we put together a band and started calling it rock and roll." Kid Rock added, "Some friends and I were getting high off bottles of Robitussin in Brooklyn, and we had this vision of a big redneck kicker music on guitars and 808s. We were like, we should call the band Twisted Brown Trucker Band." One of the first people to join their new band was a guy named Joe C., a small rapper who became a key part of Kid Rock's image and live show, despite struggling with a digestive condition that required frequent dialysis and extensive medication. They met in the summer of 1994 at a Kid Rock show. Funny enough, Kid Rock thought that somebody had brought their kid to one of his shows, which he thought was pretty inappropriate. But when Kid Rock met Joe C., he realized he was an adult and they actually hit it off, and he soon offered him a job as a rapper and his hype man. But Kid Rock soon faced another career setback. His label folded. By 1993, he had lost 2 recording contracts, and life was about to throw him another curveball. By the summer of that year, he had his first child with his on-again, off-again girlfriend who was African American. It was a relationship that he had long hid from his parents, but once he had a baby, he could no longer hide it anymore. He was still selling his bootleg albums, and he was now living off of government assistance raising a child. But he still continued to write and perform, playing gigs in Michigan, and he slowly started to gain a regional following. It was by April of 1995 he finished his 3rd album, Early Morning Stone Pimp, in a Detroit studio called The White Room. But without a record deal, he had no way of releasing the album. Without any money, he turned to his dad to release his third record, but his father had other plans, wanting his son to join his car dealership and take over the business, something Kid Rock wanted nothing to do with. But his dad finally broke down and gave his son a check for $5,000, and it was his final chance to make it big. Kid Rock ended up self-releasing his third record in 1996, and he managed to sell about 15,000 copies, bringing in about $100,000. And it wasn't long after this, he was selling out shows with a couple thousand people in attendance. In fact, he was selling more merchandise than some of the bigger acts who came through Detroit. His next step was to set up a showcase at Detroit State Theater to get major record label attention. It was now the spring of 1997. The only label who showed interest in Kid Rock was Atlantic Records, but they wanted a demo tape. So Kid Rock sent them a tape with 2 songs, Somebody's Gotta Feel This and I Got One For You.
He's gotta feel this.
Check it.
Jason Flom, the A&R guy from Atlantic Records, listened to that tape while driving on Hollywood Boulevard one day in LA and was so blown away he immediately called up Kid Rock and told him he'll give him whatever he wants. But Kid Rock didn't sign right away. In fact, the hype around him resulted in other labels wanting to sign him, and he was able to get more money out of Atlantic. Atlantic signed Kid Rock, giving him a $100,000 advance. I want to point out that Atlantic Records was rolling in money at the time. They had released albums from Hootie and the Blowfish, Jewel, in addition to Matchbox 20 and Sugar Ray. One staffer at the label remarked about Kid Rock at the time, "This is like Sugar Ray times 1,000. But the tremendous pressure to produce did little to interrupt his hard partying and cocky attitude for his fourth record. Titled Devil Without a Cause, the record blended together hip-hop and rock and saw many comparisons to groups like Korn, Limp Bizkit, and Rage Against the Machine. Kid Rock, interestingly enough, wasn't a fan of nu metal, referring to it as a fad, and because of that, he didn't stick to one style of music. In fact, some of the music predated some of these groups, appearing on Kid Rock's earlier works. These songs included Black Chick, White Guy, and I Am the Bull God. In addition to singing, Kid Rock also played a handful of instruments, and of course got some help from the Twisted Brown Trucker Band. In an interesting twist, though, the whole record served as a prediction of Kid Rock's future success and some of the problems that came with fame. He told Rolling Stone, "The whole record's a f***ing forecast." In fact, the label tried to persuade Kid Rock to remove the line, "I'm going platinum," from the title track, fearing it would give critics too much ammo and it simply came off as too cocky. But he stood his ground and he didn't remove it. Even some of the song choices seemed to leave co-producer John Travis and his label scratching their head. Travis told VH1, "That's crazy, a song about a cowboy? Give me a break, who's going to buy that?" Jason Flom, meanwhile, added that Atlantic wasn't impressed with the quality of some of the tracks. When Atlantic voiced their concerns to Kid Rock, the musician admitted that he'd spent a lot of his advance on hot tubs, strippers, and drugs. His A&R man told him to pause the partying and get back to work. That's not to say that Kid Rock was given full creative freedom, because he wasn't, and he didn't ask for it in his contract. He chastised bands who didn't want to be commercially successful, telling the Houston Chronicle they're not good enough to do it, so that's their scapegoat. "I want everyone to hear my music, have a good time, and party. And I want to get loads of stupid Elvis Presley money and have fun while I'm alive, man." He added how he willingly took advice from record label executives on how to become more mainstream and modify his songs for wider commercial appeal, adding, "I didn't want full creative control. I wanted someone to tell me how this thing works." There were some more interesting moments on the album, like the ballad Only God Knows Why, which was written during a short stint in jail following a bar brawl after a celebration that Kid Rock had after he signed to Atlantic. Interestingly, during the recording sessions, another Detroit rapper was working in the same studio. Eminem was mixing the Slim Shady LP, and being friends with Kid Rock, the rapper asked the musician to record scratching for the song Just Don't Give a F. In return, Eminem appears on the Kid Rock track, Off.
Tell the world to hold their breath, they breathe in the wrong air. This planet belongs to me and this hippie with long hair.
Ahead of the album coming out, Kid Rock spoke to the press, admitting that his sole mission was to bring rock to the mainstream again, and he also stated that he saw his audience as being predominantly white young teenagers, while at the same time stating he didn't want to exclude anyone from listening to his music. But it would be a little while longer before he actually went mainstream. Devil Without a Cause was released on August 18th, 1998, coincidentally the same day as Korn's Follow the Leader, which was another massive record from the nu metal era. But Devil Without a Cause found few fans upon its release. It entered the Billboard album chart at number 181, only selling 10,000 copies in its first week, and the sales declined in the weeks that followed. The first two singles, Welcome to the Party and the 5-year-old song I Am the Bull God, largely went nowhere.
And welcome to the party. It ain't nothing but a party. Understand the illegitimate son of man, the T.O.P.
Nobody knew what to make of Kid Rock's brand of music. Radio and MTV wanted nothing to do with him, and Kid Rock even admitted to VH1, we couldn't give that record away. Then 6 to 7 months later, after the album was released, things slowly started to turn in his favor. Kid Rock toured relentlessly to support the album, winning over new fans with his explosive stage show. Strangely enough, he even appeared on the Warped Tour in 1998, and it wasn't long after that MTV started featuring the musician in small spots, like when he appeared on the program Say What. He also appeared on Fashionably Loud and became a favorite of VJ Carson Daly, and also made an appearance on Beach House. By early 1999, MTV started to heavily promote nu metal acts like Korn and Limp Bizkit, and that broke down the door for Kid Rock to get heavy promotion from the network. His breakout single Bawa Da Ba was a massive hit, with the song peaking at number 10 and 11 on the alternative airplay and mainstream rock tracks chart. I even remember Kid Rock appearing on The Simpsons around this time and the song being featured on the show. The album also had another huge single with Cowboy, which showcased his country, southern rock, and hip-hop influences.
With a top left back and the sunshine shining. Cowboy.
It was Kid Rock's first song to appear on the Hot 100 chart, peaking at number 82, and it was a top 10 hit on the Hot Modern Rock Tracks chart and Hot Mainstream Rock Tracks chart.
You'll hear my whistle blowing when my train rolls in. It goes.
Anybody remember that Owen Wilson and Jackie Chan movie from the year 2000, Shanghai Noon? Well, Cowboy was prominently featured in advertisements for the movie. The final hit from the record, the ballad Only God Knows Why, peaked at number 19 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 5 and number 11 on the alternative airplay and mainstream rock tracks chart. Meanwhile, the song I Am the Bull God did have a bit of a resurgence following the album's success, peaking at number 31 on the mainstream rock tracks chart, while Wasting Time peaked at number 35 on the same chart. It was by the spring of 1999, Devil Without a Cause was already certified gold, and not long after went multi-platinum. Kid Rock soon joined Limp Bizkit and Stained on the Limptropolis tour, exposing him to the audience that would become his core fan base. Kid Rock even performed at Woodstock '99, appearing on stage wearing an $8,000 fur coat in the blistering heat. By the fall of '99, his album was moving 100,000 copies a week. It ended up peaking at number 4 on the Billboard 200 chart and was later certified 11 times platinum, being certified diamond. It was certified 4 times platinum in Canada. It ended up being one of the best-selling rock records of the 90s. He joined with his musical heroes Aerosmith and Run DMC at the 1999 MTV Video Music Awards. It was at the same award show he was nominated for Best New Artist and Best Rock Video. But what set Kid Rock apart from his counterparts like Korn and Limp Bizkit? Well, he referred to his music as hick hop, adding, "It's simplicity. I'm more simple than anybody. It's just from having the credibility. This isn't a ploy. I didn't set out to do country licks over hip hop beats when I was young." Kid Rock, of course, got a lot of comparisons to Vanilla Ice in the press around 1999 and 2000, but he spent years blasting the rapper in the press. It was even widely reported that Kid Rock wrote a message for Vanilla Ice on an air sickness bag, writing, "You embarrassed and humiliated a whole generation of white kids." If you guys remember, Vanilla Ice was rebranding himself during this period in time, putting out a metal record. It turned out the two performers ended up meeting and cleared the air on their beef. Devil Without a Cause helped define the rap rock and nu metal genres that dominated rock music in the late 90s and early 2000s. While groups like Korn, Limp Bizkit, and Rage Against the Machine pioneered the fusion of rap and metal earlier in the decade, Kid Rock's approach was unique thanks to his incorporation of classic rock, southern rock, and even country elements with hip-hop. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments section what you thought of today's story, and we'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.